This week on the Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles, just do it. Stop waiting, just do it. We're going to talk about self-directed IRAs and stop making excuses for not investing in real estate. So do like Nike, just do it.
Support for this program comes from the Digital Broadcasting Network, presenting podcasts and web series from everyday people who have an extraordinary passion to make the world a better place.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles. I want to thank you as always for tuning in. I'm excited to be here once again. Mr. Producer, how many episodes are we at now? This is 18. 18, Mr. Producer still does not want you to hear his voice or see him. And now he's even gone to the step. He says he doesn't have a mic, but he just doesn't want to be here. Now he's even gone to the step where if you're watching the video in the back of me, there's motion in this thing, so you can't see him walking around behind the camera. That's how incognito that he wants to be. I can make that joke. I'm African American. So wanted to talk about this week. I'm just having fun, guys. You know what? I went back and forth this week about whether I should make this the Seinfeld episode. In the Seinfeld, if you are familiar with Seinfeld, the TV show, you know it was a TV show about nothing. That's the joke. It never really had a plot. And so this week I was struggling as to what topic to talk about. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna just come on and talk about a whole lot of different stuff, and we'll make this the Seinfeld episode. But then the spirit hit me, the real estate spirit hit me, and I decided to kind of continue this theme on real estate investments as we go through our recovery here in Houston. I've been getting opportunities across my desk of properties that have flooded out and things of that nature, and people saying, hey, I'm not going to rebuild. I'm tired of rebuilding. I want to sell my property. And I want to sell my property. Do you know anybody that's looking to purchase property? And so I've told people about this opportunity, and a lot of them say, well, you know what, man, I would love to get into real estate investment, but I really don't have a method to purchase. I have money, but it's all in my retirement account, or I have great credit, but I don't have as much cash, or whatever the case may be. And so I'm gonna continue the theme this week on creative ways to purchase real estate, basically. So this is the Just Do It episode. That's what we're gonna call this. Just Do It, self-directed IRAs. Just Do It, self-directed IRAs. And so first and foremost, you can buy real estate, right? You can buy real estate. You have to believe that you can. And sometimes you have to be creative. And one of the creative ways to do that is to use your 401k and or IRA to purchase real estate. Now, let me say from the beginning, I am not a CPA. I am not an attorney. I'm just a lowly old real estate broker, all right? So I'm a good real estate broker, but I am not a CPA, or what did you look at me like that for? I am not a CPA and I am not an attorney. So with that being said, you must seek the advice of a CPA or an accountant as it pertains to some of the more advanced ways to invest in real estate. So realize that I am not a accountant. I think I've said that enough times to stave off any legal issues per this episode. But with that being said, there is a way to purchase real estate if you don't have as much cash money on hand. And that way is to use self-directed IRAs. Self-directed IRA. So what is an IRA? IRA is an individual retirement account. And it is an account that allows for you to save for your retirement, i.e. Individual retirement account. Now, let me caveat here and say there are also some 401k plans with employers that allow you to do self-direction. So you have two things. You have self-direction and you have IRAs, individual retirement accounts. Self-direction basically is a term that says you, as the owner of the account, get to direct what you invest in. So most of us in our 401k program, we invest on a monthly basis out of our paycheck, and that money is invested for us by a custodian. However, in a self-directed IRA situation, you get to direct what you invest in. Most people, I would assume, possibly are familiar with IRAs, individual retirement accounts. You set them up, you put money in that account, and depending on the type of IRA, most of the money is on pre-tax dollars. In other words, before you get taxed on it and you get to write that off. And so you typically, most people think retirement accounts, I'm going to invest in stock. I'm going to invest in bonds. I'm going to invest in mutual funds, which you still can do. But not a lot of people know that you can invest in real estate with your IRA. That is right. You can invest in real estate with your IRA. You can purchase houses with your IRA. You can purchase commercial property with your IRA. You can be a bank lender to a mortgage, in other words, a private mortgage lender with your IRA. You can do a myriad of things with your IRA, and those are called, again, self-directed IRAs. And so with that being said, realize that most people that I run into, for the most part, especially getting started in real estate, don't have as much cash on hand as they possibly need. So for instance, if you're trying to purchase a $200,000 property and you need to put 20% down, well, that's 40 grand. So a lot of people don't start off with 40 grand in their pocket to be able to do that. But they may have 40 grand that they've saved up in a 401k from a job that they had a while back and they've never rolled it over. Or they may have more than $40,000 in a 401k at their existing job that they can quote unquote play with because they have more money than that. And so just realize this is a mechanism for you to be able to invest in real estate. And if you can imagine a stock being in your IRA, you can also imagine a house being in your IRA. So how does it work? Essentially, you find a custodian or a self-directed IRA company, which is also known as a custodian, and you open an account. You can open up a SEP, which is a self-employed IRA for those self-employed individuals out there. You can open up a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA. Explaining the difference between those three is beyond the scope of me and this particular podcast. I do know the difference, but I would rather you seek the advice of a financial advisor because it really depends on your situation. So for instance, I have a SEP. I'm self-employed, so I have a SEP IRA, and I get to put money in that IRA up to a point, and I get to deduct that money from my taxes at the end of the year. And so you can open up any type of IRA. So any type of IRA account that you can open up to buy stocks, you can also open up to buy as a self-directed IRA. And so that IRA, once you fund the IRA, will actually be the purchaser of the property, right? So it would look like this. If you found a property, a $200,000, $300,000 property, and you were going to purchase it cash, but you were going to purchase it with a self-directed IRA, what you would do is you would identify the property. You would use a lowly old broker like myself to help identify the property. Shout out to the brokers out there. You would essentially say, I want to make an offer on that property. Well, what would happen is your broker, the way I would write the contract is I would write the contract up that says IRA account 1234 for the benefit of Kevin Riles is buying this particular property, because you as an individual are not purchasing the property. The IRA is purchasing the property, right? So that's one big difference. You as Joe Smith, as Susie Smith are not purchasing the property. Your IRA is purchasing the property, all right? So in this particular example, $300,000 property, we would put the contract. You would do everything that you normally do as it pertains to purchasing a property. You would go through an option period. You would do your due diligence. You do all the things that you normally do. When it came time to close, your IRA custodian would actually sign the deed and sign the ownership documents on behalf of your IRA for you, right? And so any income that you make would have to go back into the IRA. That's very, 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 very important. Any income that you make. So if you buy that $300,000 property and that $300,000 property is paying you $2,000 a month in rent, then they're paying that rent to your IRA. If you touch that money, and when I mean touch, I don't mean physically touch the check, because the check, again, has to be made out to the IRA. If you touch that money, then it becomes a taxable event, and you have just put yourself in a situation where it's like you taking money early out of a retirement account, and you would be taxed and penalized per the IRS rules, right? So just remember that, again, if you want to purchase something with a self-directed IRA, I recommend that it not be a cash flow investment that you need now. In other words, if you're trying to create cash flow for right now, everyday bills, then self-direction might not be where you want to go. However, if you're saying, hey, I'm buying a real estate portfolio eventually for my retirement, then it is a great mechanism because, again, most of us keep more money in our 401ks and IRAs than we do in our savings accounts. And so it's just a way to diversify that particular investments. Now, your custodian, there are multiple custodians out there. Contact me at the office at 281-403-3700, 281-403-3700 if you want to get some recommendation on some local custodians, but there are nationwide custodians, self-directed companies. And in fact, the one that I typically recommend here locally, they do classes and things of that nature. But one of the things I'll tell you is that they make money off of transaction, off of fees. So every time that they take in a check, they charge a fee. Every time that they cut a check, they charge a fee. Every time that they give you a statement, they charge a fee. So again, they make their income based on the activity level of your account. But what I will tell you is that I've had very successful experiences with self-direction for clients before. A perfect example is I had a client who had just recently retired. He worked almost 35 years for an oil company. He had done very well with his retirement. He wanted to, quote unquote, dabble in real estate, but didn't want to use his cash on hand. We were talking. He mentioned that he had about $400,000 that he could, quote unquote, play with. I recommended a self-directed IRA for him. He rolled that money over into a self-directed IRA and purchased a commercial building in which it was what we call a triple net building. In other words, and that's another podcast, but a commercial investment where there's very little management responsibility, basically, because the tenant is responsible for everything. And that investment has returned double-digit returns for him, and they pay his IRA. They pay his IRA, and he gets to drive by and say, I own that particular warehouse. He bought a warehouse. So again, self-directed IRAs are wonderful opportunities to do that. So some of the questions I typically get when I do classes or information on self-direction is, well, I have some money, but I don't have enough money to invest at the level that I would want to invest. Can you do a loan with self-direction? And the answer is yes. However, the IRS rules require that loan be a non-recourse loan from a bank. And non-recourse means that they cannot foreclose on or go after the IRA. So what does that mean for banks? Banks mean, well, hey, if I can't come back and get a portion of my money from you, then I'm not going to lend you as much money as I normally would. So instead of lending you 80% of the value of a particular property, I'm only going to lend you 50%. That way, if I lose, I have some equity. So there are lenders out there that will lend with self-directed IRA, but they typically will reduce the amount that they will lend to 50% or below. So you can get financing with these types of investments. So other questions I typically get: can I partner with people? Can my IRA partner with my buddy who is not using his IRA to purchase property? The answer is yes. Your IRA can invest in partnerships. That's one of the things it can invest. And by the way, I'm not an expert on this part, but self-directed IRAs can be used to invest in gold. They can be used to invest in partnerships. You can buy all kinds of investments within a self-directed IRA that are physical items instead of just stocks and things of that nature. So yes, you can partner with your IRA. In fact, what that particular client that I mentioned earlier did, he created a LLC, had his 401k, self-directed IRA invest in the LLC, and then the LLC purchased the building, right? And the reason he did that is because he didn't want the tenant to be writing a direct check to his IRA account, which he would have to do. So instead of the tenant writing the check to the IRA account, the tenant writes the check to the LLC, and then the LLC sends the money into the self-directed IRA account. So people typically, I think, are becoming more aware of self-direction. A lot of times I'll be riding down the street and I'll see a building coming up or some type of entity coming up, and I'm thinking, who lent the money on that? In other words, it just doesn't make any sense that this particular building is over here or this particular restaurant. And what I found out over the years is that private money, a lot of it sometimes from self-direction, funds a majority of deals. In fact, I just took a recent CCIM class, kind of like the professional engineer of commercial real estate, as I pursue that designation. And private equity is the number one funder of real estate. In private equity, a lot of people think, the gazillions of dollars that come out of Wall Street in private equity, but no, the mom and pops fund quite a bit of real estate, commercial real estate specifically, where they're investing along with people. And they do that a lot of times through self-directed IRAs. And so it's important that you know this as a tool as far as real estate investing. The other thing that you want to remember is that this is an IRA. So therefore, all of the rules as far as distributions and things of that nature apply. So if you're someone out there in your 50s, middle 50s, you're about to retire, and this sounds appealing to you, just remember that taking distributions from this IRA is the same as taking distributions from your normal IRA. So when you get to I think it's 62 and a half, don't quote me on that. Again, I said I wasn't a CPA, but I think it's 62 and a half, you start having to take mandatory distributions. And so again, this IRA works just like a normal IRA. The only difference is, just imagine a house or an apartment complex or a partnership in a commercial building sitting within your IRA. So you can do it. You can do it. This is the Just Do It episode, self-direction episode of the Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles. There's no excuse. And for those of you out there that say, well, hey, I don't even have an IRA, but my mom does or my friends do, you can partner with folks to help fund your deals. People don't realize, I just had on the way here today, I just had a long conversation. A guy really poured into my spirit, a fellow entrepreneur who's done really, really well, multi-millionaire, and he was talking about how they got started, and a lot of times he started with partnerships. And I said, man, I wish I could get my clients to do a better job with doing partnerships, because I have certain clients that will get together, make money, and then get mad at each other, right? They'll make the money, Mr. Producer, and then they'll get mad at each other, and then they'll divorce, but they didn't made the money. I know that was not grammatically correct. I said they done made the money. Yes, I said they done made the money. However, I have some clients who have all the inklings of great investors, and you try to put them together, and everybody's in the room looking at each other like, what, I'm going to get you. And so as I tell when I do investment classes, as long as your paperwork is straight, in other words, who does what, when happens, what happens if someone gets mad, then I'm a big believer in partnerships. I'm a huge believer in partnerships. Go make the money first, then y'all can get mad. Go make the money first, and then y'all can get mad. So with that being said, this was just a quick primer on self-direction. I plan in the coming weeks and months to start having guests. In fact, Mr. Producer and I were talking about that as well. And if I can't get them here, then what I will be doing is I will be having them phone in where actual people are doing the stuff that I'm talking about, because I don't want this just to be a lecture class. I want you to be able to hear real world examples of that. So plan to see that in the upcoming episodes, where either you will hear or they will be here guests that go along with the subject matter that I'm talking about. So I know this wasn't a long podcast today. I have to honestly go pick up my daughter because she's on a dance team, and she has a what am I trying to say? She has a event tonight on the football field, and so I don't know if he's going to cut that or not, because I said like 16 times. But if not, it'll be very funny. So with that being said, this was this week's The Real Estate of Life. Just do it. Self-direction. Talk to you next week. If you have a question about anything that we've talked about on The Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles, a real estate question or a life question, no matter what, email me at kevin@kevinriles.com. Again, that's kevin@kevinriles.com. I'll get it. I'll make sure that I respond to you via email, but also I want to kind of collect these answers so that I could help everyone else. So again, kevin@kevinriles.com.